The following podcast is a little fiery but mostly peaceful. If you're an automaton, turn away now and shelter in place. If you're a Catholic ready to renew your prescriptions of red pills and white pills, stay tuned. Welcome to another edition of Catholics Aren't Zombies. I'm your host, Chris Munir. Delighted to have you with me again. Well, guys, I think we might have a problem here. I'm really worried about something, some disturbing trend that I've noticed lately. And maybe you've seen it too, and I need your help because I've got my eyes, but I've only got my eyes, and I don't see everything, even though I do see quite a lot. What I'm wondering, or what I think I've uncovered, is that we do indeed have two different churches right now in the Catholic Church. We do indeed have a church of masked versus a church of unmasked. Is your parish a church of masked parish? Yeah, see, we seem to have what appears to be a liturgical divergence in the form of these two churches. The church of masked versus what might otherwise be better termed as just the old church, the traditional church, for lack of a better term. People's adherence to these mask requirements, the face mask, the face panties, the diapers, whatever you want to call them, based more on whichever mass they attend. And by that I mean either the Novus Ordo Mass or the traditional Latin Mass. These are basically your two options, right? And what seems to be the tendency is that the people that are attending the Novus Ordo Mass, if you watch them leave Mass and go about like they're going home, you'll notice that somewhere around 50 to 80% of them, at least half of them, are still wearing the face diapers. Now, I'm talking about churches that aren't quite forcing it down their throats, but this is where people make the decision one way or the other whether to go along with the various mask mandates. And almost every state, almost every diocese has something of the sort by this point. But while it's the case that I'd say 80% of Novus Ordo attendees at these various parishes are wearing masks, it's almost the exact opposite, the complete inverse if you look at attendees of the traditional Latin Mass. It's maybe 10 to 20% at most. And like I said, I've seen this in different states, different cities. The pattern seems to be concrete no matter where you actually go. And it comes down hard along liturgical lines almost every time. Have you guys seen this? I really want some feedback on this. Tell me in the comments below. Send me an email. I want to get to the bottom of this. This is basically a research experiment I've been doing lately. Again, look, and I'm not just going on hearsay or anything of the sort. I have seen this with my own eyes. This means I've taken my mask off, which is more like a Darth Vader mask, and I've seen this with my own eyes, Luke. But again, I will admit, sometimes we get into our own selection biases. Something comes over us and we see things we want to see rather than what's actually there. So I welcome feedback, and I really want to hear from you on that. But as I say that, I know of one really effective way we can nail this down. We can actually figure it out. Is it really the case that Novus Ordo folks always wear masks and TLM folks never wear it? Hard to tell when you look at, when you compare across different parishes, because there could be some variables that impact things one way or the other that would, maybe skew your analysis, right? Well, you see, back in my day, back in the old day, we used to have something called, science, good science, not the crazy scientism, not corporate science, not the goofy academia stuff, where they just bum the government for NSF grants and then they produce crap that, not coincidentally, supports what the government wants them to support. No, I mean real science. In other words, you control for all the external variables, all the external factors that could lead you to not be able to identify a correlation on mask compliance versus no mask compliance. There's a way to do it. And so I have kind of noticed a natural experiment. Bear with me, guys, bear with me. What happens when you have a parish with two masses, one parish, two masses, celebrated by the same priest, a holy priest, celebrates both the Novus Ordo and the traditional Latin Mass on Sunday. Let's say they're an hour or two apart. I'm not going to identify what parish this is, by the way. It's just a particular one that I'm familiar with. But you get the same priest, celebrates both Masses, what I would consider to be reverently, altar rails, no communion in the hand, patens. So we actually respect the Most Holy Eucharist. One Novus Ordo, one TLM, same priest, with wildly different levels of mass compliance. You still see this cleavage, this divide, in that the Novus Ordo people all go along with the mass mandates, and almost all the traditional Latin Mass people do not. Well, isn't that strange? And I have seen this in a particular parish. So it's not me comparing California to Georgia or Minnesota to Oregon or something like that. No, no, no. Same parish. You control for all the variables, Same priest, about the same time of day, Sunday, all that stuff. You still, Novus Ordo masks, TLM, no masks. It's amazing, isn't it? How could that possibly be? Why would there be such a almost concrete pattern? This isn't picking on any particular individuals or really anybody. It's just a phenomenon I've observed, and I think I'll get into some implications on this in a second. But I think you're left with two possible conclusions here. That Novus Ordo Catholics are either hyper-obedient to state mandates, or TLM Catholics are overly defiant to state mandates. Or both. It could be both, and there could be some gray area there somehow. But I think you're almost forced to come to one of these three conclusions, if not all of them. This has important implications for the church too. Now, what happens if we determine that this mass compliance stuff really is basically zombie mode, as we talk about a lot on Catholics Aren't Zombies? And not only that, but what happens if we can identify that, well, in light of that, one of the liturgies engenders zombies? Now, this isn't just trivial either. In a church where belief in the real presence of our Lord in the Most Holy Eucharist is basically in the basement, is mass obedience correlative with a lack of supernatural faith? And from that, does listening to mass edicts correlate with a lack of faith? There's a bunch of correlations here, folks. We need to at least pay some attention to and sift through analytically without the feelings and the emotions and actually get to the bottom of them. Why am I talking about correlations and science and patterns so much? After all, you hear people remark very often when they want to try to dismiss stuff, correlation is not causation. Which is true. That's absolutely true. I agree with that. Identifying patterns, things connecting together statistically, doesn't automatically mean you have X affecting Y. You could have what's called a spurious relationship. Like ice cream sales correlating with crime, right? Well, there's not really a correlation there. It's just both of them go up in the summertime when it's hot and there's more light out and all that stuff. Correlation is not causation. But we have to ask ourselves, if that's the case, does that mean we don't bother to identify correlation at all? Why do we seek to identify correlation? We do it to learn about the world around us and form some broad understandings. And God willing, if we do it right, it can lead us to potentially somewhere down the road correct some of the problems we see, like zombie mask obedience. All right, I don't mean to jump too far ahead or insinuate too much. Like I said, I'd like some help on this. I don't want to be out on a little far side palm tree island out by myself, yelling and hooting and hollering, and nobody gets or believes what I'm saying. But this is why I've paid attention to this correlation between mass compliance with regards to the two liturgical rites, because there could be a problem here. This could be illustrative of zombie mode in the church. Also, I've noticed a very heavy correlation between obedience to the state and a disdain for holy tradition. Right, so it seems like the folks who go along with the state, these modern Jesuit types, that might be the most obvious example, they don't like tradition anymore. Haven't for quite a few decades. Go back to the Vatican II era, probably before that even, early 20th century, right? They don't seem to like tradition much at all, but they do love being in the bed of politicians. They do love going along with the world. They love going along with the status quo. Everything you get from the top, the globalists, as we like to call them, they go along with the state. They don't like much of church tradition for some reason. I hate to say it, but it seems like, I'd like to be wrong about this, guys. Again, please throw me a life preserver if I am. But normies who attend the Novus Ordo Masses, the default Catholic option in most places, sometimes that's all you get, that's all you can, they tend to go along with the state and authority figures on everything. The state says jump, they simply ask how high, and then they do it. They blindly follow and do whatever they're told without any scrutiny, critical thinking, or reflection. One other thing I've heard, maybe this will tie it all together a little bit, but Father James Altman's made the point that, he could tell a good priest by the way they behave around the tabernacle in the sanctuary. He says the ones that, when you see them genuflect, when you see them keenly aware that they are in the presence of God, it seems to be a good indicator what kind of a priest they are. It'll tell you whether they have a devotion to, holy hours and the Blessed Mother and things like that. The ones that don't, they probably, when they're done with Mass on Sunday, they go home and watch football and chill and chow down Fritos and bean dip. And that might be all they do. They don't do their prayer commitments or anything. As a corollary to that, could you possibly tell a good Catholic from a bad one based on this stupid face mask compliance? Again, So that nobody jumps my case, I'm not picking on anybody in particular. As usual, all the usual stupid caveats. If you want to wear a mask, you're free to wear one, blah, blah, blah. Don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Okay. There's always plenty of exceptions to every rule. Unless the rule is an iron law, there's always an exception. Fine. If you are deathly afraid that you've got both tuberculosis and the virus and mixing whatever the heck else, all right, wear the mask. Okay, fine. Wear 2 of them. Are we up to? Are we up to that now? 2, 3 masks. Wear 5 of them. I don't know. It's not a moral thing, but it's maybe an indicator when we see lots of people. They go along with the state with the masks. They go along with the vaccines. They don't think these things through. They don't ask any questions. They just extend their hands in front of them, perpendicular to their body like a zombie, and do what they're told. I don't know. Call me crazy, guys. I don't think that's being a good Catholic. All right, so one other issue I want to talk about. This one's just been in my craw lately, and I want to address it here. I think it kind of goes along with the main topic of this episode. This is a little bit old now. I think this is almost a year old. We've been doing it since a couple of months into the virus paranoia. All right, what is the deal? Somebody, again, this is another one. Throw me a life preserver if I'm wrong. These no-contact Eucharistic dispensers, I hope we're not using them anymore. Yeah, no-contact communion dispensers. I'm looking at it right now. There's a picture of it and an advertisement of it on the praytellblog.com. That's what I'm looking at right now. You could probably find it in other places. This is an abomination. What the hell is going on? What the hell are people thinking? Okay, this no-contact communion dispenser, I don't know why nobody else is calling this out or why nobody else has made a fuss about it. Maybe they haven't. I just haven't seen it. But, guys, I'm going to spell this out abundantly clear. It's a phallic object. It's a phallic-shaped object. That's what we're using for the purposes of dispensing Holy Communion. We're taking the most sacred thing in all the universe and we're putting it into a phallic object container. That's what it looks like. I think this was done on purpose. Notice the implications there, too. I mean, are we... Oh, boy. And this is just one of quite a few. There's some other examples of these really weird things we're doing with Holy Communion now. I think that's the worst one. But then you got what? You got these stupid envelopes and stuff. Like after Mass, you go and you grab a Holy Communion envelope. Looks like it's set out on a table out in front, like a Girl Scout cookies or something. You've got to be kidding me. Look, to put it into perspective... If you recall, in the Old Testament, the only thing it took for God to strike down Aaron's sons was for them to bring strange spices and fire up to the Ark of the Covenant. With that in mind, I hope we know what we're getting into when we do these awful, weird, bizarre, call it what you want. You're toying with death. The fact that somebody hasn't already been struck dead by a lightning bolt is anybody's guess. Yeah, that's been in my craw lately. Hopefully that's not being done anymore, but yeah. But nobody called it out. Those Eucharistic dispensers, no contact dispensers, they're shaped in the shape of a phallic object. I'd prefer not to talk about stuff like this. I don't blatantly categorize this as a family program or anything, but dang, this is not what I think you'd have to spend your time talking about, let alone with the most holy thing in all the universe, the most holy Eucharist, which, as I mentioned earlier, 30% of people believe in, so I guess we shouldn't be surprised. So big takeaway, I hope everybody is thinking about what's going on with the limitless mask obedience. Also, let's not allow this crisis, manufactured as it appears to be, overwhelm our senses and lead us to do stupid and wicked things like profaning holy objects, especially the Eucharist. Let's keep our head about us, guys. Don't lose faith. Keep praying. Deus Vult. That's the end of the show. Thank you for listening. I greatly appreciate it. And as always, check out my other stuff. Going by my book, Caesar Vacantism, Render to Caesar When Caesar Goes Nuts. Like, subscribe, comment, blah, blah, blah. Cue the music.